feel like I've not been able to be in a room, and what I love with this part right here was being able to hear everyone be like, it's not even just the love that I receive, but the love that I get to give out, and hearing people feel the value of what they understand, like, wow, like this part's value. Because I think a lot of times we bring so much out to, and we don't, sometimes we just go. And even not just in a romantic relationship, but even with ourselves or with our family and friends, we don't realize like, oh my, like, is this what I'm doing? Appreciate, like, is this recognize this, that I'm doing here? And hearing that must be, I feel like it's so powerful. Like, how is it for you guys hearing that, I'd say as well, for you guys when you hear it from your partner?
Well, when my wife gives me a compliment and that validation, it just triggers that feeling of being safe. Because I think a lot of this rush and the anxieties that we feel come from we're in a dysregulated nervous system. We're in fight or flight. And a lot of people haven't been in a relationship where they felt safe and let that safety transition into this feeling of freedom to be themselves. And when right before we got together, I had changed the way I wanted to look at finding a relationship, because prior to it, it was the checklist. I think a lot of people have of, we take our past experiences and we say, okay, well, these were things that I really liked. This was the stuff I didn't. So I don't want that. I want this. And we keep adding and adding and adding. But the issue with that is we're constantly searching with the external to fulfill the needs of the internal. And where I switched with it was asking myself, how do I want to feel with someone? What do I want that to look like and be like? And the number one feeling was I wanted to feel free to be myself, to express, to cry, to talk about things, whatever it is, and not feel like I'm going to get shunned or have things thrown in my face. And just all those challenges that we experience in relationships that weren't meant for us in our lives. And I pursued that feeling. And when I recognized that I was feeling that, that in turn allowed me to feel safe, allowed my nervous system to like relax and chill. And I could just be. And then from that, like we blossom. And I lost sight of the question, but
That was
it? Okay.
yeah, but like ultimately that's what really mattered, like in that relationship of just being yourself and knowing that that is enough for someone, that they will love you just for you, because then now you can explore, well, what else can I connect with being myself in the world and everything. And the last piece I want to say to this is I had to learn in our relationship that the number one thing was for me to find love within. I had to really love myself in order to love you at the capacity that I do. Because if I'm not, then whatever I'm projecting is not what you deserve. You deserve someone who like encompasses loving themselves so deeply so that they can give you the form of unconditional love that I feel like we only experience with children and like being a parent. And that's what we wanted to embody and mimic. I'll stop there.
That was perfect.
It was so beautiful. I feel like he just said everything that I was about to say, pretty much. But it's validating hearing that my husband loves me and sees me for who I am. Like when he gives me these compliments, it really feels like he's seeing my soul, he's seeing my heart, because this is what I'm trying to portray with everything that I do, right? But like he said, going within and giving myself that validation is key for me to receive that validation from him. Because if I wasn't doing that for myself, then I wouldn't be able to receive that so deeply as I do now, right? So I think that's really the key there.
And now I know for ourselves, our partners are not on the panel here right now, but I also want to know you for yourself here as it comes to you right now, Zain. When you do get the validation of understanding, like when you're, can't remember, fiance or wife, my apology. When your wife does give you that external validation, lets you know, like, hey, like I love this about you. How does it feel for you as well?
In my culture,
we grow, and this is almost all of the men I've worked with have grown up with a void of lack of validation, especially when it pertains to the paternal side, so from fathers. The logic behind it is very simple. They're immigrants. They had to go on survival. They were never taught how to name their emotions even. That's like that would be huge for them. But because of that, there's a void. Obviously, I'm from that culture. I experienced it myself to a certain degree. So when I received that validation from my wife, I feel so seen, but it's also the other flip side is being careful not to let that validation be the fuel behind my actions. When you start operating from a place of, oh, if I do this for her, she might say, good job. Well, that's not me. That's my childhood showing up. When that happens, that can be potentially damaging, because if that doesn't happen, which she has every right to do because she's a human being, she doesn't have to validate me all the time. But if that doesn't happen, there might be some resentment there. And in many relationships, when the seeds of resentment get planted, it has to be addressed quickly. If not, it's going to lead to it's going to bleed out into other parts of that relationship, especially when it's something like marriage. But on the flip side, when I do receive that validation, me personally, as somebody who provides and works hard for her and makes sure that her needs are met and that she's taken care of, because she, like me, gets very involved in whatever task she's doing. She has to give it her all. She has to dump 100% of her, whatever she's doing, even the most minute of tasks like vacuuming, she has to give it her all. For me, when she's off, it's like, okay, now what can I do for you? How can I provide for you? Not monetarily, but in other ways as well, like emotional and even helping her physically around the house, which is a huge thing in our culture as well. And doing that makes me feel like, okay, this is something that I'm doing in terms of my purpose as a man in this relationship as well. So, yeah.
And I really like that input that you had and that understanding of that culture you mentioned coming from. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. And especially as you said, like myself, there's a lot of the culture that we're, as men, that we're raised on of there's not much emotion that we see being projected towards us or we're allowed to bring out there. So you bringing that, I really appreciate you bringing that up there, honestly. And I want to say now, I guess for you guys over here, we haven't got to you guys, my apologies. I do want you to express as well when the conversation comes up and we're talking about you're hearing the external validation, how it feels for you guys as well, starting with yourself, Carina.
External validation. I have a different history than a lot of people. I grew up on stage. I was a classical performer, a classical musician, and so I've had a lot of validation in my life for what I've done in a very separate way. So there's 20 feet between me and the closest audience member. And so for me, the validation that means so much in my relationship is when it can be in that intimate, quiet, face-to-face, heart-to-heart space that I can feel seen for me, not just for what I'm doing or creating or producing. And so that feeling of being loved and appreciated for whatever is coming up for me is something that means so much. And I was thinking about, being with the three of you and this whole panel and the awarenesses and the presence and the decision to appreciate yourselves first was a huge journey I had to go on. I had to go through a divorce and huge work in Tantra and energy work and self-development to be able to get to the space where I could understand myself first. I remember in my marriage, I wanted so much for him to see and accept me, and it would put me on my best behavior. Yeah, some nods there. And then I'd be like, oh, okay, we're getting each other, things are good. Okay, now I can bring up some of the harder stuff. And he'd be like, no, that's not part of the deal. We're not talking about that, we're not doing that. And so for me, heading into a relationship that does feed my soul is one where we can bring the good stuff and the challenges and where we want to grow. And I'm so grateful for how much work is coming into the world that people can find literally answers to questions that maybe their partner isn't willing to hear yet, but you can find it in yourself first. And like everyone's saying, that then you get to bring that to the relationship. And once I learned some of these pieces, once I figured out how to be with myself, before I met this guy, I had 2 marriage proposals. Like, it just changes everything. And that freedom is what gives you the choice to not only be who you want to be, but to create a relationship and be with someone who you want to be with and create that relationship with. Yeah. There you go.
Thank you. Yeah. So receiving, hearing the validation, feels great. Feels really wonderful. It warms me, and it also reminds me it's a prompt to let it in as well, because there's part of me still that wants to deflect it. Somehow it's just, so do I deserve this? What is this? This is uncomfortable. And to really just take a breath and drop in and let it in, and let it be a truth about me, about this moment between us, about how you feel about me. So there's some, like it feels warm, and then there's this kind of cognitive journey as well that I really appreciate, because it reminds me that I'm lovable and deserving of love, and the step of letting it in feels like self-love.